morning. It is Sunday and it is November 6th, and thank you for joining me. Yes, look, I am sitting. I am not on my Peloton, which is right over there, but I have been most of the week. I think I missed 2 days. But my therapist, my cognitive behavioral therapist, LB at BetterHelp, I will link it, said, this is too important. What you were saying, this is great information, and what you are doing, get off the treadmill, sit down so I can listen to you. My heart's not like beating crazy because we're social creatures. I'm going to talk about that. We mirror. So thank you for that. And she also said, get that subscribe button on there. Cause I'm like, who number or eat? Nobody's paying attention. Apparently they are. So I'm going to link that subscribe button too. And thank you for that. So this week we're talking about trauma and how trauma relates to waking up and being conscious. And I'm not going to fuss too much about this because I just need to roll with it. Okay. I deleted my first video, which was Monday. I couldn't upload it. This week was technical trouble all the way around. I couldn't get anything done. I had tons of issues that I had to work through. This didn't work, that didn't work. And it wasn't just one thing, it was everything. I'm like, this is crazy. It's like this is imploding. I don't want to do this. This is too hard. What am I trying to do here? Interesting. In retrospect, this week strikes me very much like trauma and everything I've been learning about it. It's frustrating. It's hard to wrap your head around. It's fragmented. It's disassociating. It makes you want to quit and give up. So, universe, you had anything to do with that? Thank you in retrospect. That was a big aha. I'm going to be shooting my one video at the end of the week, not at the beginning of the week. I'm still going to put it together in the same way. So I'm like, that none of that was wasted. I learned some really interesting ways about how I want to approach this and how I want to do this and what's useful. So, and I've always been that way. And nothing's ever wasted. I don't look back at anything. I mean, sure, some of it I wish maybe had happened in a different way, but everything I am has made me who I am and has gotten to me to where I am. I think of consciousness like a big map. It's a big picture. And what happens to you if you just get that map and you open it up? Like, where are you? What's your context? How do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been? Where am I? What made me? All interesting questions, but not particularly useful. I think trauma therapy and evaluating therapy, that gives context to this really strange map that we call reality. Therapy is the you are here, you were here arrow. It's a sign, it's a mile marker. And how useful is that when you're starting to orient yourself? It puts consciousness in context. Trauma, I think, and how it evolved, I think of trauma like a backpack, like a survival kit. There are some hardcore trauma or survivalists who have that pack. It's organized. They don't even have to look. They can reach out, they can pull out their compass, they can put it back, put it in the right pocket, they can pull out their filter straw, they can pull out whatever they need to defend themselves. Their pack is nicely organized. But I think for most of us, it's not. We just we found ourselves with a back. We go through our lives, we find things, we're like, oh, that's useful, that's not useful. We'll try to rummage around, we'll take it off while we're driving or hiking or walking and try to find something, but it's not well organized. And if you don't know what's in there, how can you know what you don't need to carry around? How do you know what's useful? I think of dysfunction, like that's like you can't find what you need, or trauma, like when it's happening, you just throw something in there. It's not well organized and it's not useful. Also, another really important question is, when do you unpack it? How do you unpack it? If you're hiking along and you got that trauma pack on, do you do it when you find water and you're out of water and you're bending down and you're trying to drink and nobody's watching your back, right? Probably not a good time. Or Do you sit down at the end of the day when you have decided where you're going to sleep for the night, you've pitched your tent, and you started your fire, and you got your water, you have a nice warm cup of cocoa, and you have secured your perimeter. Now, I think this is hysterical. Maybe not hysterical that I never thought, not that I never thought that maybe there wasn't trauma in my life that I need to investigate, because when I use the words like my perimeter has been secured, that should have probably been a big aha, huh? So trauma. I think this was an interesting comment that I read in Bessel van der Kolk's book. Trauma, whether it's the result of something done to you, or, and I do not think we spend enough time on this, or you have done to someone else. Trauma almost always makes it difficult for us to engage in intimate relationships. So let's think about that. Let's take that apart. We are social, compassionate creatures, I think most of us. And it's much easier to think about trauma in the context of something that was done to us rather than we've done that to someone else. But do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's a great Sunday saying, right? But I think we do to others what's been done to us. I mean, I think we can take those events and we can modify them and we can strive to be better. But essentially, we're going to do what was done in some shape or form. It's another really good reason to investigate trauma. Because again, it makes it almost always makes it hard to engage in a relationship. And what is the most important relationship we have in our lives? It's the one we have with ourselves. And if we've buried all this stuff deep in our soul, how do we on any fundamental level love and trust ourselves? And then love and trust others? We will do almost anything, hallelujah, to avoid looking at our trauma. To look at that ugly, messy part, partly because of how we've laid it down, and do we consider that useful? We will do anything. And I say to people, pick your poison. It is so easy. Gonna have a drink of coffee here to look at other people. And if we could look at ourselves like we look at other people and say, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? But we all pick your poison is what I say. It can be food, alcohol, shopping, sleeping, addiction, watching television, gambling, drugging, and even good things, right? We can take them to the extreme. Now, we'll say there are far more healthy ways to deal, like let's say you exercise too much, or you're overly helpful. That's really interesting. I was listening to a very interesting podcast about nice people who don't have egos and don't think they're egotistical. Very, very fascinating. We all numb differently. We all deal with this just a little bit differently still. So why go back? I'm on the path to enlightenment. I dug myself out. I am living a better life. Here's why. These eyeballs, this brain, this organ in here that is encased in bone that feels like stone, this is the lens by which we view the world. All this stuff, it's our filter. And whether we like it or not, we are social creatures. That's been a big thing in my life. I'm like, I don't need you. I'm good by myself. I can amuse myself. I can fit myself in. Not true. I find even doing this, when I'm going back and looking at anything, I'm inherently mirroring myself. We are socials. We try to fit ourselves into this world. And the only way we do this, because we're not collectively conscious, how wonderful would that be, is it's contextual. It's by how we see the world, and we interpret everything that comes in through a filter that we have built over a lifetime. Trauma is a thief. Fundamentally, it's a thief. It has stolen something precious from you. And if we can't critically go back and look at that, we can't flip our script. It's what I'm trying to do right now. I am so happy with where I am and what I've done, but I want to be doing something else. And I'm gonna have to go back and dig this out, because even if I don't want to, I'm pretty clear that the universe wants me to do it. So you are here to feel, you're here to figure things out, you're here to think, you're here to be. At least this is why I think. When I say you are, much of the time I'm talking to myself. This is the uniquely beautiful part of being a human being. Our capacity to create, our capacity to create a different future, to move forward, to move through cruelty, to move through oppression, and to help others. It's the most uniquely beautiful thing about us, in my opinion. And if we can't clean out that pack that we just woke up, in the middle of the woods, found on our back, and we keep walking, it's heavy. It's not useful. If we're exhausted from finding ourselves in this reality with this pack, it doesn't matter where we're going. If we're worn out and tired and we're not appreciating the journey, what's the point? Now, there are people who have spent their lives working on trauma in all its shapes and form. And that's another thing in my whole thing, and what I'm trying to do is, and what many of us are trying to do, what's my life purpose? What am I here for? What these people, like just the two examples that I can think of today, Bessel and Perry and Oprah Winfrey, what they're doing feeds their soul, right? Because this is heavy stuff. When it's the right stuff, it's what you want to move forward from. Okay, that's a mess, but who cares? Okay. So trauma, like how did this come into, it's always been on our consciousness, but how did it get elevated? The Vietnam vets, think any vet in any war, because seriously, just a big old why war? But anyway, it was really the movement to push and put PTSD on the map as an official diagnosis. But like Bessel and Perry talk about, is that really, it's trauma and it's horrible, but are most of us in war? Are we ever going to be in war? Probably not. So what's this trauma that's pervading society that we deal with every day? What's the source of this conflict? What conflict pervades your day? When I sit down and I think, it's definitely emotional, and it's definitely tied to people and figuring out your day-to-day stuff. But on a very visceral level, we understand conflict. We deal with it every day. So like I said, the two books that I'm reading, that are listening to and reading, that are front and center right now, are What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey and Bruce Perry, and The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. They are amazing. All these authors and these people stood on the shoulders of giants, understand that they stand on the shoulders of giants, recognize that. Just wonderful, concise books on trauma. Bessel says it best. Trauma and our understanding of it are in its infancy. Trauma and war and horrific events, yes, but the war begins at home. I love that saying, the war begins at home. It may not start there, and many times it does, but it certainly ends up there. And it's certainly, whatever trauma makes it into our life is what we bring home and what we pass on. If we went back and addressed trauma, particularly childhood trauma, think of how much space we would free up. And how best to do that. So I'm going to tie that into what's happened this week. So my week and the craziness in it was all about technology, particularly my phone, because that's what I'm filming on right now. And I need to take a picture of this apparatus because I'm super proud of it, but it's not what I need to be going forward with. But the fundamental issue was that my phone was frozen. It just stopped. It just was like, I'm not doing anything more. I'm not recording anymore. The fundamental problem, interestingly enough, was because all the crap on there. I have 20 some odd years of pictures and videos on my phone. And my phone just was like, yeah, I'm not doing it anymore. until you stop and you go back and you get rid of all the junk on me. But what did I do? I did what we typically do. I'm not going to go back and look at all that stuff because I don't have time. I need to go forward. I'm working on something right here. So I just upgraded to a terabyte in the cloud. I don't know about you. I don't know what I'm going to do with a terabyte in this cloud. And it still, ironically, did not allow me to do what I needed to do, which was get the old crap off my phone so my phone could even like make its way to that terabyte, which is hysterical, it provides so much context for this week. So I had to spend pretty much all day yesterday on the phone with a therapist, with an Apple therapist, unfreezing it so I could go back and I could get enough off so my phone can function. So guess what I'm going to do the rest of this week? I'm going to wade through 20 years, and guess what? I'm already finding 2/3 of it I don't need. It's not useful. Great analogy for this week. So normally Friday would be a wrap up in resources, so I'm just going to kind of tuck that into the end of this video, and eventually I will be editing all this crap out that's weird and strange, but that's not how it goes right now. It is just about getting this video done, I'm going to work on the background, I'm going to work on links and getting it up, and it'll get better as it goes forward. So the week looks nothing like I thought it would. There was a lot of frustration along the way, but some pretty big ahas. I had to back myself up on more than one occasion and ask myself about my big pictures. Also slow down and tell myself, you know what? It is okay. We get on these little hamster wheels and we just think we got to get going. And I'm like, if this is what you want and this is where you want to go, you will keep moving toward it. I know me. And if it's not, then it was never meant to be, right? So beautiful and so easy. But it took me a really long, frustrating week to get there. What is my big picture? Trying to go along the frame here. I'm figuring this out just like many, many people. I'm figuring this out as I go, and I'm trying to hopefully help as many people as I can along the way. But first and foremost, myself, right? Put that oxygen mask on yourself before you help other people. So next week, this will look a little bit different. Next week is going to be, I'm super excited about this, nighttime consciousness and nighttime. Two very, what do they have to do with each other? Where do we go when we sleep? Right now, how does that fit into my life? How does that fit into being conscious? So it will look different. Go forward, dip your toe into what you're afraid of. Look at that trauma.